Good morning. It's 9 o'clock and we will get started. So welcome to the 2020 Arkansas Monarch and Pollinator Forum that we're holding virtually. This is the day one morning session. My name is Wesley Cooper and I'm the Arkansas Monarch and Pollinator Coordinator. My position is a partner biologist position with the Natural Resources Conservation Service and Quail Forever. I'm based in Little Rock. And my job is to help coordinate for the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership. And I'm going to stop my video there, so that's out of the way. So today I'll begin the morning session with a recap on the partnership's progress over the past few years and some of the current projects that we are working on. We have a great lineup of speakers today and tomorrow. These sessions will be recorded and posted on our YouTube page. And again, as a reminder for those just joining us, please keep your microphone muted and video off to help it run a little bit more seamlessly. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask, be sure to enter them in the chat box below, or if you're viewing on our Facebook Live feed, into the comments section. If you have questions for our two habitat panels that will be this afternoon, please email them to arkansasmonarchs@gmail.com. So over the past 2 decades, monarch butterfly populations have declined significantly due to a variety of factors. Subsequently, the Presidents of the United States and Mexico and the Prime Minister of Canada have called for cooperative action. This decline has also prompted several national groups to petition the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to protect monarch butterflies under the Endangered Species Act. In June of 2014, a presidential memorandum was issued from the White House directing federal actions to address the issue of pollinator conservation, resulting in the creation of a pollinator health task force and the national strategy to promote the health of honeybees and other pollinators. Recognizing the importance of this issue and the need to be a part of the solution, various partners in Arkansas organized the first Arkansas Monarch Summit on November 9th and 10th in 2015. Exactly 5 years ago to the day of the 2020 Arkansas Monarch and Pollinator Forum, the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership was formed. So the AMCP, or the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership, is a collaborative of state and federal agencies, municipalities, non-governmental organizations, businesses, academia, and private individuals working together to conserve and protect monarch butterflies, pollinators, and their habitats. Since forming in 2015, we now have over 30 proud partners that are active in the steering committee and the habitat, outreach and education, and research and monitoring subcommittees. Our mission is working together to create and enhance and conserve monarch and pollinator habitat in the natural state. So to help Arkansans share appreciation for the importance and value of monarch butterflies and pollinators, and to do work to conserve high quality habitats that support robust populations of these species. Following the 2015 summit, the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership Steering Committee worked together to finalize a statewide comprehensive plan to conserve and protect monarch butterflies, pollinators, and their habitats in Arkansas. This was called the Arkansas Monarch and Pollinator Conservation Plan, and it was finalized in May of 2018. Summit participants agreed that statewide strategy for monarch conservation should focus on expanding and creating habitat necessary to support monarch breeding and successful migration across the state. So moreover, participants agreed that while the monarch is the primary concern, the plight of all pollinator species needed to be included as a part of the strategy and the overall message, hence the name. Specific goals were included in the plan that focused on the needs of our native bee species. The plan has 5 main categories: habitat conservation, enhancement and restoration, research and monitoring, outreach and education, capacity, governance and funding, and collaborations and partnerships. The plan can be found on our website at arkansasmonarchs.org. Before I talk about the first section of the plan, I wanted to define what it means when we talk about monarch and pollinator habitat. High-quality monarch and pollinator habitat is composed of a high diversity of native species. To support our migrating monarchs and our native bee species, high-quality habitat includes native species that bloom throughout the entire growing season. Species that bloom early in the spring and late in the fall are particularly important. To support a maximum diversity of pollinators and wildlife, it's important to maximize the number of species in these habitats that have different sizes, shapes, and structures of their blooms. Monarchs are larval host obligates, which means that they rely on milkweed species to lay their eggs on. Arkansas has 21 native milkweed species, and high-quality habitat includes at least 2 species of milkweed. Remember that adult monarchs can nectar on a variety of species and are not confined to milkweed. Only the caterpillars can eat only milkweed. Finally, high-quality native habitat not only benefits monarchs, but honeybees, our native bees, grassland songbirds, northern bobwhite, deer, turkey, and other wildlife. So the first section is the habitat section, and goal 1 is to provide high-quality habitat comprised of a diversity of nectar-producing plants, including milkweeds that are suitable for monarch reproduction that will be available to pollinators throughout the growing season. So the objective was to restore, create, or enhance 3,500 acres on private land, 500,000 acres on public land, and 7,000 acres on public and private rights-of-way by 2023. In 2018 and 2019, we impacted over 45,000 acres on private land, which is 13 times the 5-year goal, over 60,000 acres on public land, and more than 32,000 acres on public and private rights-of-way, which is 4.5 times the 5-year goal. That's nearly 140,000 acres that were restored, enhanced, or planted with pollinator habitat. And these numbers have an asterisk by them because this year's data hasn't been submitted yet by all of our partners. Some of the strategies mentioned in the plan focused on utilizing federal and state cost share programs to create habitat and provide best management practices. In line with the plan, NRCS will release the Arkansas Pollinator Conservation Planning Handbook next year. This handbook is meant to be a resource for conservation habitat planners and land management professionals. It will be available to the public once published online on the NRCS Field Office Technical Guide, and the link will also be posted on our website. This handbook will serve as an excellent resource for years to come, and the handbook has sections dedicated to recognizing existing pollinator habitat, protecting our native pollinators and their habitat, the establishment, management, and maintenance of pollinator habitat, and appropriate NRCS practices for habitat establishment and maintenance. There's also several reference sections for financial resources, native plant species that benefit pollinators, native seed mixes that are appropriate for conservation sites, regional sources for plant materials, herbicide residual times, and common and specialist bee species in Arkansas. One of the objectives under the habitat goals was to ensure milkweed and nectar plants are included in existing habitat restoration programs. NRCS and Quail Forever created native seed mixes for each ecoregion in Arkansas and a few additional mixes for grazing and rights-of-way. As I mentioned on the last slide, these seed mixes will be included in the NRCS Pollinator Handbook and utilized for habitat conservation projects across the state. These seed mixes have an average total of 61 native species, with no more than 9 native grass species in each of those. These high diversity native mixes meet all of NRCS program specs and cost about $300 per acre. The ecoregion seed mixes that have been created are for the Arkansas Coastal Plains, the Delta, Ouachita and Blackland Prairie, the Ozarks, and the Arkansas River Valley. There are also several native warm season grass grazing mixes that have been created that can also benefit pollinators. There's also a short-statured seed mix specifically designed to be used on solar arrays and rights-of-way. One strategy to help accomplish our habitat goals was to work with NRCS to enhance existing WRE and CRP sites for pollinator habitat. NRCS, Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, and Quail Forever worked together on the Wetland Reserve Easement Pollinator Habitat Project to fund enhancement of existing easements on nearly 675 acres in 2019. We're currently working with RDOT, Enable Midstream, Today's Power, Arkansas Electric Cooperative Corporation, and other rights-of-way stakeholders to create habitat on public and private rights-of-way to increase habitat connectivity across the state. There are also several projects underway that focus on creating and enhancing habitat in these areas. These new programs will be officially announced next year if funded. RDOT also has their Operation Wildflower program that establishes new roadside wildflower populations with seed donated by a sponsor. Local clubs, groups, and businesses can adopt these sections of roadway by purchasing seed. These plantings may be established along interstates and primary roadways with wide rights-of-way because of their potential for showy displays in the large planting area that they offer. Today's Power, local electric co-ops, and Quail Forever have also been incorporating monarch and pollinator habitat into existing and new solar array sites that are coming up across Arkansas. To help understand rights-of-way and their importance, here's a map that shows the primary and secondary roadways we have in Arkansas. That's over 25,000 miles. We also have more than 7,500 miles of transmission lines and over 5,600 miles of natural gas pipelines. These linear habitat corridors add up fast and can increase habitat connectivity across the state. It's very important for migrating monarchs. We also have Ben Guerin Golf Course in Fort Smith. We'll be hearing from Jay Randolph, who's the manager there, later today. He is working on the Mazard Prairie Restoration Project, and so far he's restored over 100 acres on previously mowed areas of the Ben Guerin Golf Course. Some other ongoing projects that we have is working with the City of Little Rock Parks and Recreation, the Western Hills Park, which was an old golf course. They're talking about incorporating pollinator habitat into some of these areas. They've also formed a committee for natural resources management in the parks. The City of Monticello has a new pollinator planting outside of Lake Monticello. It was planted last year. And they're interested in incorporating monarchs in the rough, which is kind of similar to what Jay is doing at Ben Guerin Golf Course, but it's a national program with National Audubon about incorporating pollinator habitat along golf courses. They also have some projects going on at the baseball fields. Their local Master Gardener chapter has decided to adopt these areas and convert them to natives. Village Creek State Park is another golf course example. The highlighted areas show the areas that are going to be planted to pollinator habitat. Sebastian County Conservation District also has several projects going under their urban initiative. They have Holland Oaks Farm, which is the photos to the right, and they are kind of using it as a demonstration area. It's right in the middle of town of Fort Smith. And then they're also working to incorporate pollinator habitat on Hope Campus, which is a local resource for impoverished families and homeless individuals. Bearcat Hollow is also a Forest Service project. They are converting some of these open areas to native habitat, and they host an annual work weekend for volunteers with Arkansas Wildlife Federation. The second goal of the Habitat section focuses on increasing the supply of regionally appropriate native seeds. Later during the session, we'll hear from Jennifer Ogle, who will discuss the Arkansas Native Seed Program and the work ongoing in the state to increase supply of local ecotype seed. Since we share many of the same goals and objectives, the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership promotes native seed collections hosted by our partners and Project Wingspan. Project Wingspan is a volunteer seed collection program that expanded to Arkansas in 2020. Sarah Wittenberg with the Pollinator Partnership coordinates volunteers statewide. The Pollinator Partnership is an organization based out of California and is the same organization that's responsible for creating National Pollinator Week. Sarah will go more in depth on Project Wingspan and their work in Arkansas later this morning as well. One success story that I'd like to share from a collaborative project with some of our partners is appropriately named the Covey Project. Members of the Little Rock Garden Club wanted to do something to help the monarch butterfly and our other pollinators. Together with Arkansas Game and Fish, Quail Forever, Audubon Arkansas, and Central Arkansas Water, they host multiple seed collections per year to collect ecotype seed that will be used to restore a piece of land owned by Central Arkansas Water. Planting is expected to take place this winter. One target goal of the Habitat Subcommittee was to create documents that discuss best management practices for pollinators. These 5 documents will be posted and available on our website later this month. These documents cover pollinator-friendly practices on rights-of-way, row crop farms, forested property, pastures and hay meadows, and covers habitat establishment on private lands. Our Habitat Subcommittee co-chairs will provide an overview of these documents tomorrow during the morning session. The research and monitoring section of the plan is naturally different from the other sections because it prioritizes different research topics relevant to monarchs and pollinators. There are 2 main goals. The first is to increase and expand knowledge of the biology, distribution, population status, threats, and the habitat needs, requirements, and establishment for monarchs and pollinators to better manage these populations. The second goal is to expand monitoring efforts across the state to inform conservation actions and management decisions. Some of the highlights of the Research and Monitoring Subcommittee include hosting the first Pollinator Research Forum in Little Rock last year in September. The intent of this event was to provide an opportunity for students and professionals who are involved in pollinator-related research to exchange information and learn about funding opportunities and generally learn about what other projects were ongoing in the state. As a result of this forum, the creation of the research listserv to help facilitate communication to and within the group. They've also been consulting with regional experts about current native bee research and monitoring efforts. Currently, there's not a complete inventory of native bee species present in Arkansas, so we don't currently know if we have species that we should be concerned about. Discussions have begun about adding additional native bee species like action plan next year for the first already call it on the site upon is of another project of the organization. There's an Arkansas also added additional groups working with the habitat model team will be that with the link. There's now an Arkansas project on not this. For those that aren't familiar with Cetra, it's the app you can download and create. You can use the app to log observations and identify an animal. As of last week, 100 monarch observations to the project. This is very important. It's just that understanding getting through Arkansas and be user informative decisions. It's very easy to join. To the computer to join the project. You can also use the app. With the Monarch, if you get a picture of just app what you takes the photo of, it's also able to pull information from the picture for safe publish data share. Then at the bottom, you can click projects and add it to the Arkansas Monarch Mapping Project. You can separate observations. There we go. Sorry. So citizen science is a big part of the second goal for region monitoring. The Dear North well-established project to the monitoring project and you can report the first time you saw an adult monarch, any monarch sighting, or other life form. The Monarch Monitoring Program, or AMCP, is a national citizen science program to collect milkweed, nectar plant, and monarch use data from a variety of land-use types. This program is housed in the Monarch Joint Venture, and we'll be hearing from NJV's Regional Monitoring Coordinator later during a session about this program. Arkansas Game and Fish and cooperative employees have adopted several insights, agricultural conservation and life management this year. If you'd like to adopt a to monitor with a team of volunteers, there's an online training program available on NJV's website. There's also a on iNaturalist that is looking to gather more information on honeybee and native bee distribution across the state. Unlike the Arkansas Monarch Mapping Project, if you add an observation to your account within Arkansas of the bee, it's automatically added to the project. We're working to expand native bee monitoring across the state by researching protocols and existing programs in other states that we can adapt to use here. In addition to the native bee project on Naturalist, we hope to expand monitoring to include citizens. This photo was provided by Coleman Little, who will be doing a presentation on native bees in Arkansas later today. It really shows the bees that we have in Arkansas. And although there's currently no species inventory in Arkansas, there are estimates that we have between 400 and 650 species of native bees, though this number is likely closer to 500 species. The outreach and education section of the plan is the most diverse and has the most overlap with others. There are 4 main goals. The first focuses on increasing public awareness of the value and of pollinators and monarch efforts that they face. The second is to encourage habitat practices, whether it be small gardens to larger restoration projects. The third is to encourage participation in citizen science initiatives like the ones that I just mentioned. The last is to engage the agricultural bee to incorporate pollinator practices into existence. As part of the strategies outlined in the plan, in 2018 and 2019, the Outreach and News Committee wrote 3 articles for targeted publications, took part in 3 media segments for news and radio programs, 3 speakers who talked about native plants at Arkansas University Libraries, reached 5 schools about creating schoolyard habitat, and consulted with 5 businesses about creating pollinator gardens on their property. So our target goal was to give at least 12 presentations or informational exhibits per year. In 2018, we gave 6 presentations and set up 1 exhibit. In 2019, we gave 62 presentations and set up 30 exhibits, which is phenomenal for the partnership. The presentations alone had over 2,600 attendees. We developed a reporting system for our partners in 2019, so the 2018 data was gathered as partners had records of their outreach events for that year. So it's very likely that not all the events that took place were reported. So if you haven't already, please go and follow and share our social media accounts so we can reach more people and you can keep up to date on the latest events and news. We're active on Facebook and Instagram, and you can find us by searching at Arkansas Monarchs. On Facebook, we have 908 page likes, and we've gained 778 followers since 2019. We also have 277 Instagram followers. Pollinator Week is the 3rd full week in June every year. For National Pollinator Week this year, the Outreach and Education Subcommittee got a governor's proclamation for Pollinator Week in Arkansas, and they curated 15 social media posts for the week that reached over 29,000 people and got over 3,000 post engagements. In 2019, the Monarch Ultra came through Arkansas, and we hosted a celebration event in honor of the runner passing through. The Monarch Ultra is a group of ultra marathon runners that followed the monarch migration from Peterborough, Ontario, Canada, and ended at a butterfly sanctuary in Mexico. 46 ultra runners ran legs of 50 or 100 kilometers to cover the nearly 3,000-mile journey of the monarch. This event was held on October 7th and featured booths from our partners as we celebrated the monarch migration. At the time of this presentation, our updated website will be available in the next few weeks. It will still be under construction for a few months, so please keep checking back for updates, and we appreciate your patience. So this picture was too big to fit on one slide, so I cut it in half so you can see where it starts and begins. But all of the resources that I've mentioned during this presentation will be available on this website. The Outreach and Education Subcommittee members contributed to the newly released Native Gardening for Arkansas Pollinators brochure that can be used as a quick reference for those interested in creating monarch and pollinator habitat. The brochure is currently available for free download on the AGFC website, and the link will be posted on the partnership website. The printed brochure will also be available at AGFC nature centers. As some of you have seen, in the upper right-hand corner, the partnership has recommended native plant lists to people started with planting native. We recently produced a native plant care and maintenance guide that's meant to complement this plant list. The new 12-page document is meant to be a simplified guide to maintaining species in a formal garden setting. There's all of those resources in the document. In 2019, the Operation District and the Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership received a Schoolyard habitat from Arkansas and U.S. Wildlife Service to purchase materials for greenhouse kits for schools to grow regionally appropriate native milkweed. Schools received greenhouse types and several species of milkweed seeds grow and used in school gardens. In total, 13 schools received kits to produce over 10,000 milkweed plugs. Unfortunately, the coronavirus pandemic has impacted their ability to produce a full quantity of clear, but trays and other papers so they can continue to integrate monarch quality and milkweed propagation in their curriculum for years to come. Northwest Arkansas Community College has developed milkweed propagation protocols and also provided instructional and videos to help teacher students successfully grow milkweed from seed. There's currently 1,713 habitats in Arkansas. There's 4 certification programs that are really popular. The National Wildlife Federation has a certified wildlife habitat program. The Arkansas Wildlife Federation Watch hosts the Monarch certification. You can see their sign in the right society, a bird-friendly program, and that also supports monarch and pollinator conservation, and it's a 3-tiered system. Wild One also has a native plant flag garden certification. So there's other certification programs that projects may be eligible for. The great part about these programs is that any size habitat can qualify, and people can purchase signs to educate others about creating for habitat, the importance, and monarch pollination. Somebody told me in his book, Best Hope, said that if half of American lawns were replaced with native plants, it would be the equivalent of a 20 million acre national park, 20 times bigger than Yellowstone, or 100 times bigger than Shenandoah National Park. We understand if habitat sizes, these are what helps. The most important thing that you can do to help monarch and pollinator conservation in Arkansas is create habitat to support these populations. If you're interested in learning more about federal and state cost share programs that you may qualify for, or if you're interested in technical assistance or written management plan for creating or enhancing pollinator on your property, contact your local NRCS field office, Gulf River Farm biologist, Arkansas Game and Fish private land biologist, or local forester to learn more about what you can do on your property. You can also meet at gulfforever.org and continue these little resources. I also encourage you to come into our Alert Bridge Habitat Challenge this afternoon. In addition, a generous volunteer donation talent to help create these beautiful learning sheets that are distributed at our outreach events. These will also be available on our new website. You can email me or email like for a little bit of these coloring sheets that feature native bumblebee species and monarch on butterfly milkweed, Aspeltes tuberosa, and the monarch bicycle. The capacity, governance, and funding section of the plan has 3 distinct goals. The first was to formalize the partnership as a multi-organizational public and private partnership. We finalized and adopted the charter in 2019, and in November of last year, our partners signed an amendment of cooperation to show their commitment to monarch and pollinator conservation in Arkansas. The second goal was to create a full-time partnership coordinator position to help implement the plan and further develop conservation goals, strategies, and action items. The Natural Resources Conservation Service, or NRCS, and the Arkansas Natural Heritage Commission and Quail Forever are the funding partners for my position. I was hired in November of 2018, and I'm very proud to work with such a committed and passionate group of partners. The third goal is to manage a network of volunteers to further that partnership's objectives. As I mentioned throughout this presentation, we work with volunteers at many levels in different capacities. We're currently in the process of co-sponsoring a certification program that hopefully will be launched next year for citizens interested in pollinator conservation and the citizen science programs that I've mentioned. It is our goal to promote and cultivate collaboration and partnership across agencies, organizations, and stakeholder groups in support of our mission to increase and sustain habitat for monarchs and pollinators. We became an official partner of the Monarch joint venture last November, and Arkansas has had representation at the MJV annual partner meetings for the past 2 years. This year's meeting, unfortunately, was postponed due to COVID. The photo you see on the slide is from the 2019 meeting in Arizona. And if you haven't heard of MJV before, the Monarch joint venture is a partnership of federal and state agencies, NGOs, businesses, and academic programs working together to protect the monarch migration across the United States. We've also helped work on and contribute to revisions for the national goals outlined in the MJV Monarch Conservation Implementation Plan. The Arkansas Monarch Conservation Partnership is still growing, and we have welcomed 10 new partners since I was hired in an official capacity. We continue to build these formal and informal partnerships as we continue our work in Arkansas. I'd like to take a moment and thank all of our partners again for their dedication and tireless work over the past few years. I'd also like to give a special thank you to Connie Oslita for personally donating funds to cover the website domain name, and to Edward Shepper and Kat Love for donating their time, skills, and expertise to help create our new website that will be launched soon. All of the accomplishments and ongoing projects that I've mentioned during this presentation are just a few highlights, and I've only just scratched the surface on the work that they've done and continue to do to benefit monarchs and pollinators in the natural state. None of this work would be possible without their continued cooperation and time. So thank you. And with that, I'd love to answer any questions. Ryan Diener will help facilitate the question and answer portion. Please type them into the chat box on Zoom. And if you're viewing on Facebook Live, please add any questions that you have in the comments. If you'd like to contact me, my email address is on the screen. Thanks for listening.
Great job. Thanks, Leslie. No questions coming in yet. So Priscilla asked if you could talk about the certification program.
Sure, I'd love to. So we're not really set on the title yet. We've been approached by the National Wildlife Federation. They have a certification program called the Monarch Stewards Program, and it is going on in Texas right now. It's the only place it's located. So they reached out to us because we work closely with them. Essentially, it's going to be a multi-day course. We don't know if it will be, in person or virtual yet, but essentially it will cover the different citizen science programs like monarch tagging, AMCP, and a few others. But basically what happens is after you take the training, you get a certificate of completion, and we kind of give the volunteers opportunities to jump in and get involved. So hopefully that will show up next year. So just keep an eye on our website and social media accounts.
Okay, so Jessica asked if it'd be possible to get the slides from your presentation, and also she'd really like a list of the ways that she can get involved. She wasn't quite fast enough to take all the notes she wanted. That's okay. So I can definitely, if you send me an email, I'd be happy to send you a copy of my presentation. This webinar was also recorded, so it will be posted on our YouTube page so that you can go back and watch it. Some easy ways to get involved is to, pick one citizen science project that I mentioned, or keep an eye on native seed collections that are going on. The Arkansas Native Plant Society, the Arkansas Native Seed Program, Audubon Arkansas, and several other partners host local seed collection events. So depending on where you're at in the state, that could be a great opportunity. And then Project Wingspan also covers a large area of the state. And Sarah will be a speaker this morning to talk about those different opportunities for where you can plug in. Okay, well, that looks like that is it for the questions. Okay, well, since we finished early, and I want to keep us on schedule for those that are tuning in at different times, if you'd like to go and get a coffee refill or take a short break, we'll be back at 10 a.m. with Jennifer Opel. Who's the collections manager at the University of Arkansas Herbarium. She will be talking about natural areas as seeds for restoration and the Arkansas Native Seed Program.
One last thing, Leslie, that somebody asked when you said the new website would be available.
So I don't have an exact date. I would like to say within the next 2 weeks, the new website will be available. If there's anything that I mentioned in my presentation that you'd like sooner than that, feel free to shoot me an email and I'd be more than happy to send you those documents.